No, no, no. Those hospitals are terror hospitals. Our hospitals are civilian hospitals. Here's the threat of Tel Aviv damages from early this morning for the chatters that don't know how much Iranian strikes have intensified. Iranian strikes have not increased in frequency. It's like success rate has increased dramatically. The success rate of the strikes, the success of the Iranian missiles actually hitting targets inside of Tel Aviv have gone up a lot. The Iron Dome effectiveness, the Iron Dome, if you were to consider like all of the arrow systems and David Sling and the THAAD anti-ballistic missile air defense systems combined, if you call all of that fucking Iron Dome, because the Iron Dome part of it is just Tamir interceptors, and they're obviously for short range missiles. They're not supposed to intercept like massive hypersonic ballistic missiles, but all of these other ballistic missile launchers that are incredibly costly, incredibly expensive, and very difficult to replenish in an expedient manner. And much more expensive than the Tamir interceptors, which are around $200,000 a pop. Shouts out to taxpayers in the United States of America, by the way, for footing the bill as always. I think in spite of the fact that the Israeli Air Force has successfully targeted some of the launchers in Iran, which has actually diminished Iran's capacity to do these massive salvos, Iran has increased the intensity and increased the successful hit rate by using newer technology, and the interception rate has gone down dramatically in the process. An Israeli official has told the NBC that they only intercepted 65% of the missiles in the last 24 hours. And I don't know if that's like partially, there was some suspicion that this could be like cyber attacks on the interception systems that cause them to like deploy. There are numerous other physical ways of tricking the Iron Dome as well. I remember someone talking about like literally having, there are obviously duds that you can send. There are ballistic missiles that you can that you can send that are specifically designed to draw attention, but they don't actually have any sort of like serious payload in them. But then also on top of, and then the goal is obviously to strike through and have the actual payload delivery missile go through. But at the end of the day, it is obvious simply looking at. I went to Japan. It is obvious simply looking at the. Oh yeah, I was on MSNBC. It's obviously looking at simply the strikes and the impact of missiles. There are some fairly successful hits that took place last night, which was, of course, early Tel Aviv morning. So I ain't get it, lol, bro. When Trump tariffs China bad for American consumers, but when China does the same, it's somehow bad for Americans as well. And China's based. I get it, you propagandists, but at least try not to be so blunt. You not even trying at this point. Wait, what? Yes, tariffs are bad for the home country and also the other, the country that you're implementing the tariffs on across the board. Especially if the trade, especially if trade is designed around China being the manufacturing hub. But it's more impactful for America than it is for China, specifically because China is the producer and America doesn't have a competitive domestic manufacturing base. Like, we don't have trade to protect, if that makes sense. Do you understand? So yeah, it's different. If America had a robust manufacturing base that was a competitor with China, and then they engaged in a tariffs regime, it would make more sense. That would be trade protectionism. Like being anti-NAFTA in the fucking 90s was for this reason, right? Like being against NAFTA back in the day was a position by a lot of Democrats, such as Bernie Sanders and many others, and union leadership, because there was some trade to protect. But since that, not gonna lie, fam-a-lam, everything went over my head. I cooked though. Okay. You did, King. You cooked me. In any case, here are some of the successful strikes that took place last night that I was looking at. It is pretty wild. One of them was literally a hospital, by the way, an Israeli hospital, which which was the first time, as far as I understand, that Israel was making a concerted effort to criticize bombing a hospital. I thought that was like fair play. I thought that was like the best thing you could possibly do. The more you strike hospitals, the more moral an army is. I thought, you know, I just get all my notes from Israel. But in any case, the reason why I think the hospital was struck was because partially the weapons that Iran used this time was cluster munitions. That is the suspicion here. At least like they found remnants of the missile, and it looks like it's one of those that just opens up and spreads in every direction. Like it's one of the Iranian missiles that actually has numerous warheads in it that can deploy once it reaches its. I don't know what the proper terminology is. I'm not a fucking missile autist, as you guys know. Yeah, here's Raghib Soilu talking about it. Iran used a new missile warhead today, according to a retired Israeli Colonel Ofer Cohen. This warhead has the ability to disperse small munitions instead of exploding in a concentrated manner. It disperses in the air in a few dozen munitions. The Khorramshahr 4 missile. It's similar to it's like a cluster strike. Wait, I thought clusters were a war crime also for Israel. I know that's horseshit, but still. No, it's supposed to be. It is, except for the United States of America and also Israel. Everything that Israel is complaining about right now against Iran is immediately hypocritical. Like it's fucking ridiculous. Like it's not wrong technically to say cluster munitions are supposed to be illegal for a reason because it's not targeted, right? And when you, even if you target like a military compound or whatever, you accidentally have the capacity to blow up a non-military target, as is the case with this hospital. This is part of the reason why you're not supposed to use this. I read that the hospital is right next to a cybersecurity military building that was damaged by the shockwave. I don't think that that's the case. That is what the initial Iranian assessment was, but I don't think that that's the case. I think that this is my assessment of it, it just looks like this is a case where they lob it. They have very over where it goes. And it, Israel had struck a hospital in Iran a couple days prior as well. Luckily, from what I understand, the building that was hit in the hospital was actually, wait, is it effing already? What the hell's going on? Wait, did a chatter say, are you complaining? Are you claiming that Israel used cluster munitions in Gaza? Israel has used way beyond just cluster munitions in Gaza. Okay. Here is the United Nations report on Israel using cluster bombs threatening global ban. But not only that, but also Israel used white phosphorus in Gaza. What the fuck are you talking about? And it's also in it's suspected to be used in fucking Ukraine as well. Dude, Israel uses bunker busters on a civilian fucking tent city. What are we talking about? Like, Israel does virtually everything beyond even cluster munitions. This is not even a question. Like, what? There's not. The only thing Israel hasn't used is a fucking nuclear weapon. And it doesn't even matter that Israel hasn't used a nuclear weapon because they've used the metric ton equivalent of 5 nuclear weapons in Gaza, a tiny patch of land. The amount of munitions that they've deployed in Gaza is the equivalent of 8 fucking nukes. Do you understand? 8. Or 5 or 6. I don't know the exact number, the exact comparison. It's multiple, though. It's not one. In any case, there's no defense of Israel's conduct. And obviously, I'm explaining to you what the issue is with these kinds of warheads in general, because they end up actually fucking hitting targets that they're not supposed to. White phosphorus in Ukraine is 100% on video. White phosphorus in Lebanon, and also, wait, what? Hey, what's up, pedo? You know nothing, pedo. Wow, why are you so dumb? You child rapist and terrorist. What kind of pure projection is this, dude? Absolute psychopath. What team are you wearing today? Mexico. This is the OG Aztec jersey. People are unhinged today. I know. You want to see the meme that's from? What meme? Yeah, I'm a Mexico invasion defender. Mexico invading Los Angeles, California defender. You didn't post a fit? Yeah, I know. We have Republican senators thanking Israel for their peaceful bombing of Iran. Like, what the fuck? Yes, they're fucking giant pieces of shit. They're monsters. Our politicians are monsters, chat. We know this already. You know what I mean? We know they're monsters, right? Caroline Leavitt is reading a new statement from Trump about plans for Iran. Basically, the revelation is that Donald Trump is not going to do anything, at least for the next 2 weeks, pretty much.
Will help fulfill a number of President Trump's core campaign promises. Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote direct.
Tensions escalate between Israel and Iran as U.S. weighs possible response. So what's interesting about this is that earlier, like almost after, I think, the strikes on Tel Aviv, Israel eases the Home Front Command defense guidelines starting Wednesday at 6 p.m. Most of the country will shift from, right before this last barrage that took place last night. Most of the country will shift from strict defense to limited activity. I don't know if they keep that or if this is like, I don't know what the exact timeline of this is, but I know that they were limiting the shelter in place warnings. Like Home Front Command had basically said society is on complete lockdown up until yesterday. Now they actually eased the restrictions, and then these strikes happened in Tel Aviv, directly on I think it was the stock exchange and a hospital, and obviously a fuck ton of military targets are also being struck. A fuck ton of interceptors are being struck, but Israel refuses any kind of information from coming out on successful strikes on military targets, successful strikes on military assets in general, including strikers like the anti-air defense systems. Because they have a censorship protocol implemented. Israel has always had military censor, obviously, on what you can and can't report. But now they're literally criminalizing like people filming themselves getting fucking bombed. So that's the situation, and that's part of the reason why it's like very difficult to get accurate information from what the actual struck targets look like. Obviously, in Iran, there is literally no internet, so it's even more difficult. The Iranian internet is just like on and off with regular frequency. So if there are Iranian chatters in here that are trying to reach out to their families, I'm really sorry if you're unable to do so. But when you hear something from mainstream outlets, when you hear information from mainstream outlets about like what was successfully targeted or struck by Iran inside of Israel, that is something that went through the military censors. I need you to understand this, okay? When you learn about something from mainstream media about a strike that was successful, an Iranian strike that was successfully hitting a target in Tel Aviv, that means the Israeli military decided this is appropriate for news consumption. That is important to recognize. That means that the Israeli government believes that you can know about this, okay? There's some kind of propaganda usage for them. They might be wrong in their assessment, but it doesn't matter. Like, that means that they made this calculation and allowed you to see it. Some of it is also impossible to ignore, obviously, because it happened in broad daylight when people were awake. Many phones are out. So then, obviously, that also makes it very difficult to censor. But ultimately, there were a lot of successful strikes that happened last night, our time, which was this past morning, Israel time, including the stock exchange, I believe, but also this hospital. There is, from what I understand, a lot of misinformation flying around about the hospital. Some people say, oh, there was military There were wounded military members that were being sent to the hospital. Like the Israeli occupying force soldiers were being treated at the hospital. Some people are saying that the hospital was right next to a military facility, and it was actually just shock waves that struck one of the buildings of the hospital. I think ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Sky News reports that the damage to an Israeli hospital occurred because Iran was seeking to strike a nearby IDF intelligence camp. Why does Israel put its intelligence camp near to hospitals? Questions that must be asked given Israel's conduct in Gaza. Of course, they will never be asked, but it has been kind of interesting seeing a full 180 from Israeli spokespersons about how, why are you listening to what Iran is saying in terms of like what their shields. Like I've seen literally every single fucking question that I have seen from Hasburis online has basically been very interesting questions that we've been asking about Israel's conduct in Gaza for the past fucking 20 months. And it's alarming how they don't even fucking see it. And I think it was like Soldier Goy Tellem, who or someone else that I saw on Twitter that basically made this point. And I think that's a pretty prescient, pretty valid point to make, where it's like, you don't understand why Israeli society feels this way and why Israeli society broadly thinks they're the victims here, because you can't comprehend that like their modus operandi is we are innocent civilians being struck unjustifiably, whereas it's different when we're killing these like disgusting vermin Palestinians who breed and are also Hamas terrorists. Like that's basically it. Like they have this warped perception because broadly Israeli society looks at the situation and goes like, no, those hospitals are terror hospitals. Our hospitals are civilian hospitals. And it's really interesting because like Mehdi Hassan made the same point as well. Look, here it is. Elon Levy finally opposes the bombing of hospitals. Okay. I tweeted something similar as well. He says, oh, go away, you cretin. You're malicious, but smart enough to understand the difference between face-to-face combat with armed forces fighting out of hospitals and a direct ballistic missile strike on a hospital. You bombed hospitals. I spoke to the doctors in there. You're a spokesman for war criminals and a hypocrite to boot. It's actually kind of nutty that like Israeli spokesmen are just running around being like, no, you have to feel bad for us right now. Our hospital was struck after spending 20 months defending bombing hospitals and being like, nope, that's a military hospital. There's a military usage for this hospital. You don't understand. We have to bomb it. We have to bomb it. We have to bomb it. We have to bomb it. And it's fucking nuts. Like, you are the last person to talk about bombing hospitals. Like, I'm sorry. I can say it. I can say that bombing a hospital is inappropriate regardless. Okay? I can say that. I've been saying that for fucking 20 months. You can't. Okay? Sorry. You can't say that. You have dropped it. You have no moral high ground in this situation. You know what I mean? And it's ironic because like, luckily the hospital was evacuated already, or at least the part that got hit was evacuated already. That's good. That's a good thing, right? Thank God. But also, on top of that, Israel struck a fucking Iranian hospital. Israel struck an Iranian hospital a couple days prior. Israel struck a fucking Red Crescent ambulance in Iran. And that is before we even talk about literally every single hospital has been destroyed by Israel in the Gaza Strip. Every single one. Israel double tapped healthcare workers deliberately in Iran. The official Iran UN mission popped off again on the hospital situation. Iran categorically rejects the Zionist false claim of targeting a hospital. Our self-defense measures are precise and fully consistent with international law, targeting only facilities directly involved in and supporting the regime's unlawful aggression. Contrary to the Israeli fanatics, Iran is committed to international humanitarian law and does not target civilians and civilians' infrastructure. I mean, that's also not really real, right? They fucking did blow up the Haifa, the Haifa plant, which is... They did that because Israel blew up their fucking water facility in Iran and also a fucking an oil depot in Tehran. So they did. They are responding in kind, okay? They are responding in kind, which is crazy. And the reason why it's so crazy is because this has never happened before, where Israel has never experienced even a limited fractional response for all of the metric ton of violence that it has dished out to everyone in the region. That's the difference here. Israel strikes a hospital. No one ever strikes a hospital in return. That does not happen. Okay? This Iranian retaliation came amidst Israel striking the Iraq water cooler at the nuclear plant. The Iraq nuclear plant is literally a plant that was cooperating with the international authorities. Okay? As I tweeted as I reposted Evan Hill's statement on this, Israel, right as these strikes were happening, under the JCPOA, right, Iran agreed to redesign Iraq to make it impossible to produce weapons-grade plutonium, and the IAEA confirmed it was filled with, the reactor core was filled with cement. The Iraq redesign has been underway in cooperation with China. Israel appears to have just destroyed it. Iraq is the nuclear power plant in Iran. Israel is doing Russia shit in terms of, no, worse than Russia shit. Like, they are directly striking nuclear power plants. Like, remember the fears that we all had about Russia potentially like overtaking Chernobyl or like fucking blowing up Ukrainian nuclear power plants? Right? It was, I think it was like what, the facility in Ukraine that did get struck in the back and forth fighting. Hosmer out in full force saying it's a lie that they filled it with cement. Dude, you can't, like, the International Atomic Energy Committee, or whatever the fuck it's called. I'm going to say the name wrong right now. But like, the IAEA is not, did I say it right? Fuck, I probably didn't say it right. I think I said it right. Is not a party that is antagonistic to Israel. It should be, given its job is to monitor, the International Atomic Energy Agency, its job is to literally monitor these kinds of projects. They spend 70% of their budget on Iran. Okay? They spend 70% of their budget on Iran alone. Israel has nuclear weapons. Everyone knows Israel has nuclear warheads. Israel is not a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel illegally has nuclear warheads. Okay, there are, 5 countries that are signatories to the NPT? Now, obviously, the countries that have the nuclear warheads don't even abide by the principles of non-proliferation or denuclearization, which is supposed to be the end goal. They don't even abide by that. But the idea that Iran is actually Iran is actually operating outside of the boundaries of international law is insane. It's crazy that Iran unironically follows international agreements better than Israel does. Israel openly is antagonistic to these international agreements, is violated these international agreements. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It is unimaginably frustrating. Iran's foreign minister defends missile strikes, says Israeli military sites were targeted, not civilians. Iran's foreign minister issued a statement Thursday defending the missile strike on Beersheva, claiming it accurately eliminated Israeli military command control, intelligence headquarters, and another vital target. He said the nearby Soroka hospital suffered only superficial damage to a small section and described the facility as largely evacuated and mainly used to treat Israeli soldiers engaged in the genocide in Gaza. 25 miles away, where Israel has destroyed or damaged 94% of Palestinian hospitals. Drop site notes that the hospital was indeed damaged with visible structural damage, including a building where the roof completely collapsed. Dismissing Israeli accusations, the minister stated, it is the Israeli regime and not Iran that initiated all this bloodshed. Israeli war criminals and not Iranians are targeting hospitals and civilians. He also noted that hundreds of innocent Iranians have been murdered in cold blood since Israel launched what he described as an illegal war against the Iranian people. He warned, we call on Israelis to heed our evacuation orders. Our powerful armed forces will continue to pummel the criminals who target our people. This was also, where is it? Mohammed Shahada's take. Soraka is Israel's main hospital to evacuate IDF troops. It proudly displays this military helicopter with a poster caption, Israel's medical Iron Dome. By Israel's own rules of engagement in Gaza, bombing a hospital to kill a wounded journalist, Soroka is a legitimate target. Insane, isn't it? Then why did you say silent when Israel bombed every single hospital in Gaza? It's unlikely the Soroka hospital itself was targeted, unlike Israel deliberately and surgically bombing hospitals in Gaza. The Iranians were most likely aiming at the IDF bases in close proximity to the hospital. Israel, unlike Iran, has precise targeting capabilities. It has air superiority, especially over the Gaza Strip. It is not even a comparison. It has ground troops in the Gaza Strip. So when Israel actually blows up a hospital, it has the capability to not do that. They just choose not to do that because they're deliberately destroying the healthcare infrastructure. Remember that. Shortly after Putin said this, Israel struck the nuclear facility. Israel struck Iran's only... President Putin says Israel has assured the safety of Russian personnel at Iran's Russian-built Bushehr nuclear plant, which the two countries have worked together for 3 decades. Vladimir Putin also, fake friend, does not, said something along the lines of like not offering any sort of weapons support in their joint security partnership that it has with Iran. Vladimir Putin said that there is no additional... He said that there's no additional help that Iran will receive in the form of like munitions, which I think is I mean, there he basically said we have a collaborative agreement that is not a security partnership. Sorry, that's what he said.
Мы заключили контракт на строительство еще 2 блоков. Работы идут, и наши специалисты находятся на площадке. Это свыше 200 человек. И мы договорились с руководством Израиля, что будет обеспечена их безопасность. Мы видим,
We see today in Iran
что на сегодняшний день в Иране
that despite the complexity of the internal political processes taking place there, and I don't think there is any point going into detail, there's nevertheless a consolidation of society around a country's political leadership. It happens almost every time and everywhere. Israel struck Iran's only civilian nuclear power plant at Bushehr, located at the Gulf Coast. I don't know if this is real, chatters. I don't think that, I don't know. This AF post anyway, that's like America First post. What is this? No, this is the full quote. Iran agreement does not have defense clause. Iran does not ask Russia for help. Iran did not want to cooperate with Russia on air defense previously. Iran fights the fight alone. They're proud and want to be self-reliant. If the situation escalates, we'll see if they will need help. For now, they don't want it. Russia, Iran. Iran specifically wanted no defense agreement with Russia. Our country's independence and security, as well as self-reliance, are extremely important. We are not interested in joining any bloc. Qasem Jalali, Iran's ambassador to Moscow. Anyway, shoe doesn't seem to fit on the other foot, huh? Hillel Fund, an Israeli hospital. If you spoke up about Gaza and Iran and are silent now, you are a morally bankrupt, vile human being who will have to live with your shame for the rest of your life. Your children and grandchildren will look at you and wish disdain and disgust for siding with evil. The IDF has apprehended more Hamas militants involved in the October 7th attack. There isn't a single person who took part in the October 7th massacre and who is safe. We will get to every last one, whether they're hiding in a hospital, a school, or in a palace in Qatar. Hamas terrorists continue to surrender at mass. Earlier today, terrorists emerged from the Kamal Adwan hospital, weapons in hand, waiting for the reaction of the world on this one. Those are civilians. Those are water guns. How dare Israel humiliate them this way? Dear Hamas, it's over. By the way, I remember this exact moment that he's talking about where Israel literally offered fucking nurses and shit. Israel forced all of these Palestinian men that were in the hospital, civilians, to undress and then gave them weapons to, like, gave one of them weapons to basically hand after they had already undressed them. It was the dumbest propaganda I have ever fucking seen in my entire life. Remember how stupid that was? When they were like, why are these naked men holding a AK-47 and then handing off the AK-47 to the Israeli military? This makes no fucking sense. Yeah, this is early on. Israel has done a million other depraved things in the process and tried to, like, you know, pawn it off as serious things that are happening on the ground, as they simultaneously fucking destroy the media infrastructure in Gaza deliberately, destroy the healthcare infrastructure in Gaza deliberately. Israel has no leg to stand on. Israel's defenders have no grounds to defend Israel at any point. Here is Sky News' report on it.
A hospital in southern Israel has been hit by an Iranian missile as the two countries continued to exchange blows overnight. Israel's military claims the ballistic missile directly hit the Soroka hospital in Beersheba. Local emergency services say 2 people have been injured. It's believed that Iran was targeting the nearby IDF intelligence camp when the hospital was struck. A hospital in southern Israel has been hit by an Iranian missile as the two countries continued to exchange blows overnight.
Why doesn't Israel admit to having nukes? Everyone knows they have it. They have admitted to having nukes, pretty much. They just can't officially confirm it because then they're in violation of numerous laws. And that's the reason. Like, America knows Israel has nukes, but America tells Israel not to admit to having nukes because then it would be they would have to be a signatory to numerous international laws, and they can't do that, or they don't want to do that. It's like bodybuilders and steroids. That's kind of funny. Yeah. Israel's targeting Iraq now makes the Dimona nuclear facility a viable target for Iran. It's something the Iranians hesitated to strike before because of potential diplomatic fallout, but at this point, Iran is likely open to at counterforce strategy. They have yet to do so. It has taken multiple days after Israel struck a hospital in Tehran for Iran to strike back at even the direction of a fucking hospital, and maybe even not even maybe, like the hospital was bombed. Okay, but has Israel considered that they're hiding weapons under the hospital? Oh, they deny it. Oh, well, I'm just going to keep saying that they have IDF headquarters and guns and missiles at the hospital. Well, here is something that is not fake, right? That hospital does actually treat IDF combatants. It's something that they're proud of. By Israelis' metrics, by Israel's own metrics, that means they can bomb that hospital. That is literally Israel's own fucking metrics. It's obviously ridiculous and illegal, for the record. It's been illegal every single time Israel has done this. Just so you understand, make no mistake, Israel's own metrics of rules of engagement and strike priority and targeting capabilities demands that if there are wounded IDF soldiers in a fucking hospital, that it's fair game. You can kill as many children in that hospital as you fucking want. That is what Israel has unironically defended openly in direct violation of all norms and all international laws around combat, international humanitarian laws that were set. It is a violation of numerous rules of conduct in war. Weapons of mass destruction found in the hospital. Yeah, it's just, this is before we even consider that Israel has mandatory conscription. So technically every single person has actually joined the Israeli occupying force at some point, you know? Because, like, think about it. Israel killed Hassan Eslaya, okay? One of Palestine's most famous journalists, most famous photojournalists. And they openly stated that the reason why they killed him was because, one, he had been photographed next to Yahya Sinwar, okay? And two, he actually was documenting October 7. They said, which is journalism. Like, documenting on October 7 as a journalist was what he was doing, okay? That is his job. He was not a combatant. He was not holding a weapon. He was holding a camera. Israel knew he was holding a camera. Israel claimed that his journalism was the reason for why they assassinated him. They first blew up his tent, and he somehow survived it. He was in the hospital. Israel struck the hospital to kill him, and then said that the reason why they killed him was because of his participation on October 7. His participation on October 7 was literally journalism. Okay? Understand that. By that metric, if you were allowed to target people who were not enemy combatants at any point, but were simply photographed next to a high-ranking military official, that's open season for every journalist ever. Okay? If you were to claim, like, that's why I was so frustrated when Emmanuel Fabian, IDF's correspondent for Times of Israel, was celebrating the assassination of Hassan Piker. I could not believe it. I could not comprehend it. I was like, dude, you literally served in the IDF. You are the IDF correspondent for Times of Israel. You're constantly around Israeli occupying force soldiers, and you document their atrocities as a journalist. That means they could fucking dome you, you know? It's crazy. That is not it doesn't make any sense. And up until this very moment, up until the tit for tat between Iran and Israel, there was never a moment where Israel could ever suffer repercussions for its escalations of violence, its violent actions. Now that has changed. So now it's even weirder knowing full well that you have a country, a sovereign nation with striking capabilities that is willing and able to strike back if you strike a certain type of target. So now there are repercussions, and these guys are still behaving as though there are none, and it doesn't make any sense to me. The hubris initially made sense because you're a fucking asshole, you're a genocidal monster, but the captive population of mostly children that you're murdering have no capacity to actually strike back with even force, right? But now you are actually going after a country that has the capacity to strike back. You hit a hospital, they have the capacity to strike back at a hospital. So what blows my mind in this process is that these guys are still fucking talking like they are impossible to, they are infallible, and that no one can actually retaliate at all.
Begin with this morning, Israel and Iran are increasing their attacks on each other, while President Trump weighs a big decision about whether the U.S. should even get involved. Overnight, one Iranian missile hit a major hospital in southern Israel, causing very heavy damage there. In the meantime, CBS News has learned that President Trump has approved attack plans against Iran, but he's holding off on a final decision for now, he says. Deborah Patta starts off our coverage at the location of the bombed hospital. Deborah, good morning to you. What can you tell us?
Good morning. This is Soroka Hospital, and what you are seeing behind me are paramedics and first responders who are taking patients who were already receiving care in the hospital when the attack took place. They are being evacuated to other health facilities. The moment an Iranian missile slammed into Soroka Hospital in Beersheba this morning. Inside.
Yeah, for the record, once again, this kind of coverage is shocking. Like, I didn't know mainstream media had the capacity to look at a hospital that was bombed and go, this is unacceptable. Think about the victims. Because, I've been alive for at least the past fucking 20 months, and I've been watching closely, and I never heard this. So now, in the interest of parity and fairness, will they actually turn around and say, well, here is the reason why Iran struck this hospital, and we believe the Iranian government? Will they turn around and say, well, the IRGC statement implies that there was military usage for this hospital, it was a dual-use hospital, and therefore it's actually technically justifiable? Because that's what they said. That's what they said for Israel every single time. That's what Israel lied, and they went along with that lie over and over and over and over again. They're absolutely disgusting for this, but I will say one of the differences for the media is Israel lets them get in and see these sites. They don't let them go to Gaza. No, I know, but there are journalists in Gaza. There are doctors in Gaza. That's the difference. There are literal journalists in Gaza. They could just fucking tap in and talk to said journalists in Gaza. Al Jazeera cannot be the only fucking outlet that shows the damage internally. There is firsthand accounts. You're not wrong, though. Yes, that is the whole purpose of why Israel doesn't allow Western media to enter the Gaza Strip, because they don't want the Western perspective to be clouded by the humanity of the Palestinians and the inhumanity of the Israeli occupying force. I haven't been keeping up in the last 24 hours. Did Israel strike a hospital first? Yes, Israel struck a hospital 2 days prior. Yeah, allowing Western journalists to visit scenes of the strikes plays a huge part in how Western audiences understand the conflict. The emergency room at Soroka was still opening when we arrived. One Palestinian doctor had an IV port in his hand and cut open on his arm. He was still working, treating Muslim and Jewish patients despite being wounded in the ballistic missile strike. When they have doctors, literally like Western doctors, right? When they have Western healthcare professionals that fucking go out and work in these hospitals in Gaza, and they are being interviewed, what do they ask them? They go, hey, I know you're claiming that you're treating Palestinian children that have fucking bullet holes in their skulls, and this is unprecedented amounts of violence for even doctors such as yourself that have worked at numerous areas of conflict. But do you condemn Hamas? Do you believe that there are Hamas militants in the hospital? How many Hamas militants are in the fucking hospital? How many weapons are in the hospital? Those are the questions that they ask even Westerners that are working in the fucking hospitals. Will they ask the same questions to the IDF officials? No, of course not. That's my point. This plays a big role in the way that this conflict shapes people's perspectives. And God forbid there is a person out there who actually tries to make an accurate assessment with a morally consistent position. Then they get constantly fucking attacked as a vicious anti-Semite. Understand that the reason why so many of these fucking weirdo outlets, like these right-wing outlets, are actively demanding my deplatforming is for this purpose. Because I don't play the fucking game that these guys are playing, whether willingly or unwillingly. Okay?
Panic and chaos as doctors and patients fled to the bomb shelters. This is the largest medical facility in the south. The emergency room was operational at the time of the attack, but there were only minor injuries. Seriously ill patients who require ongoing care have been taken to other hospitals. First responders and Israeli soldiers arrived to secure the scene. The hospital says the old surgical building was damaged, but that it had been evacuated days before the strike. Over Tel Aviv, the skies were ablaze with one explosion after another as Israel intercepted a wave of missiles. One breaking through and hitting this high-rise building. Some people were still trapped inside as first responders rushed to help. And relief and joy for this father who was reunited with his family, including his 10-month-old baby who'd been missing together with his wife for over an hour after the attack. A week of Israeli strikes against Iran has killed hundreds, including top military commanders, and damaged nuclear facilities. This morning, Israel hit the Arak heavy water reactor, which helps cool the reactor. But a byproduct is plutonium, which can be used in nuclear weapons. Iran has said that the strike on Soroka Hospital this morning was not intended for the health facility, but for a military intelligence site nearby. Tony?
Deborah Pataforis in Israel. Deborah, thank you very much. Right there, that part of the hospital here, the Soroka hospital, you can see the roof was basically blown off. This was after a missile strike from Iran into southern Israel early Thursday morning. You can see the side of
it. If we were fucking as depraved as the Hasbarists are online, we'd be looking at that baby and be like, oh, that's fake. That's Zio wood, you know? That's what they say. That's what they say about like literal fucking carcasses of children being held together by their goddamn parents after an insane strike. Tel Aviv wood, Tellywood, I don't know, whatever. It's called Pallywood. There's a term for it. Atrocity denial. That's what Israel defenders do.
It's still smoldering. And if we walk through here, you can see that there are shards of glass on the ground from the impact of the missile. Now, this happened after Israel launched another round of strikes on Iran. Israel started this conflict nearly a week ago. It said it wanted to eradicate Iran's nuclear program. It has expanded the sites that it has hit. It has ordered the evacuation of thousands of people from Iran. Iranian authorities have said hundreds of people have been killed. Overnight, Israel hit its water reactor. Now, the strike on this hospital is significant. This is the first strike, authorities say, on a hospital in this conflict in Israel. It is a major hospital in the south of Israel.
That's the first time an Israeli hospital has been struck. Interesting. They entertained striking Lebanese hospitals. I believe they did strike Lebanese hospitals. They blew up every single hospital in Gaza. Every single hospital in Gaza has been attacked by Israel. Most of them have been decommissioned, with the exception of like one or two at this point. And they've also been sieged endlessly. Okay. They struck a hospital in Iran. They killed healthcare professionals of the Red Crescent in Iran. Interestingly enough, first time this has happened in Israel proper. First time. 20 months. First fucking time.
Staff have said that a lot of people, most of them were in safe areas. Dozens of people were lightly injured, but most of the people had already been moved. A lot of these hospitals have underground bunkers where doctors are performing surgeries, and people have already been staying there. And they say that so far the damage to people.
Interesting. It's just an interesting dynamic that I'm observing here. Maybe because in the eyes of Western media, sure, access plays a big role in this. Okay. Access plays a big role in this. But I think the other thing that plays a big role in this is the reality that mainstream media operates on Western supremacist values. Israel is seen as a Western aligned state. Israel is basically packaged as a Western state. And these are the only human beings that suffer. The enemies of Israel, on the other hand, no matter their level of innocence, are considered either at most collateral damage, an unfortunate byproduct of war that must be waged. They celebrate an attack on a hospital, no matter which side the hospital belongs to. Okay? Having said that, make no mistake, Israel defenders have no ground to stand on this issue. And you should not allow them to try and farm sympathy points in this circumstance, knowing full well. Why not? What do you mean? Knowing full well that for the past 20 months, they have destroyed the entirety of the healthcare infrastructure in Gaza deliberately and championed that over and over again, claiming that the hospitals were dual use, falsely claiming that all of the hospitals in Gaza are Hamas command and control centers. Tamam da hastanede yatanların iki tarafta da suçsuz ve masum olması gerekmez mi? Şimdi İsrail hükümeti sinirden dolayı oh iyi olmuş havasından denmesi doğru mu? Buna sinirli olacağımız kişi propagandacılar. Tamam, evet. Ben de bunu yapıyorum zaten. Bana niye benim söylediğim şeyi Türkçe söyledin yani? Belki bilmiyorum, anlamıyorsun İngilizce konuştuğum zaman.
Has been minimal. They were prepared for it, but they say that they were still shocked that the hospital was hit.
Fox News alert.
I think what's interesting about this, though, is that while Israel will try to use this to farm sympathy and to create a victimhood narrative around Israel and be like, oh my God, can you imagine how devastating this is? Can you imagine how devastating it is that a hospital was struck? All this does is remind people of the 1,000 different instances where Israel has openly celebrated striking every fucking hospital in Gaza, openly talked about blowing up hospitals in Lebanon, actually blew up hospitals or struck hospitals in Lebanon, healthcare workers in Lebanon, and also striking hospitals in fucking Iran as well. So I think this also ends up creating more backlash because more people go, wait a minute. I remember when you were saying that Al-Shifa had a command center. Like, I remember when you were saying that. I was there. I was watching. I couldn't believe my eyes. You put out like a shitty-ass graphic image to be like, this is why it must be destroyed. Hold on. Do we know if this was an Israeli air defense missile that actually accidentally struck the hospital? Do we know if this was Israel bombing its own hospital? That's what you said in Al-Shifa. There is literally an endless collection of different types of horrific attacks against Palestinians, Lebanese, and Iranian hospitals being presented in a few short hours since the military target next to a hospital was struck by Iran. Yep. Yeah. Look at that. That's the Israeli Special Forces, once again, hiding as hospital workers and patients in a hospital in the West Bank to go and assassinate a patient in the hospital that was getting treatment. They killed him in his hospital bed. I understand your point, but hitting a hospital isn't a thing to celebrate. Point to when I have done that. Point to when I have done that in the last hour and 35 minutes that I've been live. Do it right now. I agree with you. Hitting a hospital isn't a thing to celebrate, which is why I'm telling you right now, this is a showcase of the depravity of Israeli society and Israel defenders broadly who have celebrated every single hospital being bombed. You know, I'm not saying you said that. Okay, thank you for your demonstration of fucking morality. Don't be disingenuous, pussy. You were implying it. I hate that shit. What does Tucker Carlson say? A feline way of making a statement without making the said statement. Anyway, this is from 14 hours ago. Sirens from Tel Aviv to Tiberias. Barrages around 30 missiles, which would make it the largest in 2 days. Unverified photo of impact in occupied Palestine. Tel Aviv reports up to 50 missiles. Unclear if it was 30 or 50. Israeli air defense versus the latest barrage. This is from last night. Seems to have been hit. 2 hits at least, but it sounds like there's more than 2. More from the big explosion in Tel Aviv. Appears one of the explosions was so powerful that it shattered windows for several city blocks. Still don't know exactly what was hit. The aftermath of one of the impacts in Tel Aviv. This is kind of sad, but also comedic timing. But I did see this fall. Luckily, the person was not, harmed significantly. But I saw this exact sign fall on someone after while the CNN journalist was covering this area. Also, if you want to know how fucking insane a statement this is, Benjamin Netanyahu literally found a way to make this about himself, which is incredible. Netanyahu, there have been people killed. Each one of us pays a personal price. My son Avner canceled his wedding. Womp womp, dude. Yeah, everyone's paying a personal price for this, Why are they paying this price, by the way? People being killed? Because you wanted to strike Iran. You struck Iran. And you thought, no retaliation will take place. I'm just simply striking Iran. What do you mean? They don't want the smoke. It'll be just like Gaza. Oops, turns out it's not just like fucking Gaza. They have entire munitions depots that they have designed specifically for this moment. So the people are sacrificing their lives for your ambitions. That's number one. And then number two, what is Benjamin Netanyahu's sacrifice? Flying out to fucking Greece back and forth, maybe every now and then. But then also simultaneously, his son had to cancel his wedding. It's so sad.
אני מאוד מעריך את זה. כל אחד מאיתנו נושא מחיר אישי. זה לא פסח על המשפחה שלי. כן, פעם שנייה שבני
This is the
עבר...
second time my son Avner has gone through this. Because the threat of missiles and rocket fires cancels the wedding. It's certainly a high personal price for him. And for his fiance and for our family. And I must say, my dear wife is a hero. It's kind of crazy because it's like, if you're an Israeli and you saw, I don't know, your fucking mother or your grandparents get like destroyed because they were sleeping when the missile struck. Like that one Israeli woman that we watched who went, no, this is actually still valid. We have to still keep blowing up Iran. After she went on television and literally said, I'm really sad that my grandmother died because they were sleeping and they couldn't make it to a shelter, but Israel still has to fucking keep blowing up Iran. When you hear Benjamin Netanyahu, your leadership, who started this, say, you know, we're all suffering in our own way. I can't have a wedding for my son. Like, how does that make you feel? Because I feel like some people are losing more than others. You know? At this point, I guess, like, if you're so full tilt on board with bombing Iran, then even the repercussions that you experience in the process, albeit marginal, are worthwhile, because you're just like, well, ultimately, we're still killing Iranians over there, and I like that. My appetite for death and destruction is endless. So in the process, if my grandparents die, or even if my loved ones die, it's fine. She has carried a personal price for years as I lead this move against the Iranian nuclear program. She has gone through this. She has sacrificed the best of her years, and she's given me all the strength to be here. Because without her, I would not be here. And so have my two... Yeah. Israel's a natural disaster, even in Israel. No, up until this moment, up until Israel actually met a force that was able to retaliate in kind, even if its retaliations are severely limited, as opposed to what Israel is doing to Iran, Israel has never experienced any serious repercussions. As a matter of fact, civil disobedience in the direction of trying to penalize Israel for its ethnic cleansing campaign, like boycotts, divestments, and sanctions from the state of Israel, and the demands for said sanctions from the state of Israel have been considered anti-Semitic, and people have gotten in trouble for advocating for even peacefully dealing with Israel. That is how protected Israeli society is. That is how sheltered Israeli society has been. One of the only countries in the fucking region that actually said, you know what, we're going to implement a blockade on the Red Sea off of our coastline. As long as Israel continues to starve the Gazan population, we will do our very best to stop trade and shut down at least one of the ports that Israeli society relies on. And they did that successfully. This was Yemen. Yemen did this successfully. Okay? And guess what happened? They got bombed into oblivion by the American government for doing this. That is how sheltered and protected Israeli society is. Yemen never stopped doing this, of course. And it has been fairly successful. Their blockade has been fairly successful. Doesn't matter. Daddy's American will send 10 bill. I mean, we have expended more than 10 billion. We've expended more than $27 billion so far. I think the estimate that I looked at yesterday was like $27 billion is what the cost has been so far to America. We're footing the fucking bill. And that was in November of 2024. So since then, the price has gone up even more. Where is the, there was a fucking tweet that I wanted to show you guys from, again, Emmanuel Fabian, who literally fucking showed new weapons coming in from the Western world, you know, air defenses and Israel's defenses are being beefed up by Western allies nonstop. Arguing against arming terrorist groups is so un-American. Can you stop? What? Arguing? Yeah, okay, you're right. Fair. You got me. There's also reports that Soroka Medical Center was damaged in what looks like a massive blast. Unverified reports of the 4-story building collapse. Still waiting on more images. Might be this partial collapse. Location of the strike is Holon, south of Tel Aviv. This, I believe, is the. This, I believe, is if I'm not mistaken, this was next to the stock exchange or something. Am I wrong? Bro, Kuwait literally is at a state of war with Kuwait. Is now we're stuck between it. What? What are you saying? Lots of damage to multiple buildings in the Diamond Exchange district of Tel Aviv. Yeah, this was a Diamond Exchange. There was also an insane tweet, an insane Hebrew tweet that I translated, and it was like a crazy surprise. I saw finally a translate to English from Hebrew tweet that did not make me want to throw up instantly. Normally, when you know the meme is, the meta is, when you translate posts from Hebrew, it is the most Nazi thing you've ever seen in your entire life. But there are incredibly rare, almost like a loot box. You know, this is like a CS:GO knife. Yeah, never been so pleasantly surprised by a translated Hebrew tweet in my life. Here is Yoav Groweiss. People here have never stopped justifying the shelling of hospitals in the Gaza Strip. But the second they fire on a hospital here, suddenly everyone comes out against the violation of the laws of war. We are like the player who never stops playing dirty, but the second someone touches him, he throws himself to the ground and screams foul. This is an incredibly rare translate from Hebrew tweet that you translate and your expectation is like going to be the most, you know, blood-curdling shit you've ever heard. And it's the exact opposite. It's like a very normal take. Wow, that's pretty hateful. They're coming after LeBron. Okay, shut up. This is not a CSGO knife. This is one of the banned skins. Translate replies. Sinwar was eliminated under a hospital with several other commanders. There is nothing to compare. In which of the following hospitals? This guy's fucking owning. The evil Iranian regime has crossed every moral line. Only the scum of the human race fires missiles at sick children and the elderly in their beds. Let the whole world know. This is a cruel terrorist regime that must be uprooted for the sake of Israel's security and for the sake of the entire free world. Nah, you don't say. Buddy, you don't say. Sick fucks, huh? The sickest of fucks, as a matter of fact. Can't even comprehend of a sicker, grosser type of person, right? How do they not see it? Because the reason why they don't see it is because they don't think they're killing humans. They do not think, Israeli society broadly does not think that the people that they are killing in Palestine, the Palestinians, they are not human beings. They are breeders. They're vermin. It is the same as the way Nazis perceived Jews. That's it. That is it. They just don't think that when they kill sick children that are starving, that are in a fucking hospital bed, that they have starved for the past 20 fucking months, They think that that is just, pack watch. They're just like discarding trash, basically. They don't think Palestinians are human beings. Breaking, U.S. weapons transferred to Israel via Belgium despite official ban. A shipment of American weapons was delivered to Israel today aboard a B-747 cargo plane operated by Challenge Cargo, an Israeli shipping company based out of Liège Airport in Belgium. According to a source, the weapons initially arrived from the United States to Liège on a plane operated by American cargo airline Kalitta Air. The shipment was then unloaded and transferred to the airport at Challenge Cargo aircraft, which later departed to Tel Aviv. What's particularly striking is that this transfer took place despite an official Belgian government decision banning the export of ammunition and weapons to Israel, a policy announced months ago as a part of Belgium's stance against Israeli military operations in Gaza. Nevertheless, the transfer occurred at Liège Airport, raising serious questions about the enforcement of the ban or the existence of behind-the-scenes exemptions. Unironically, yes, you can't compare Iran's bombing of a this is a parody account, chatter. You can't compare Iran's bombing of a hospital in Israel to Israel's bombing of hospitals in Gaza. We are the chosen people and Palestinians are not. As simple as that. Something like that. It's more so that they're real humans and the Palestinians are not. That's the way they see it. Update. Israel's government press office has notified media outlets that all broadcasts or recordings from combat zones and missile impact sites now require prior written approval from the military censor. I fucking told you. I told you. The only reason why we saw the impacts is because it happened in broad daylight and it was impossible to hide. Okay? That's it.